Hi, and welcome to our today's seminar. How to create here and now
Good day.
presented by our founding director, Vanessa Jansen. My name is Florentina, and I'm the personal assistant of Vanessa here at Positive Dynamics. Joining us today from our advisory team, we have Hadi Shet, and he would love to have a few words.
Thank you, Florentina. Thank you everyone for taking the time today to come in, and also everyone online for taking the time to be here. For the benefit of everyone in the room, Hardik, I'm one of the advisors of the team. In addition to being a financial advisor, I also am part of the investment committee with Dave, our other founding director. I've been with Positive Dynamics for just a bit over 6 years now, and yeah, it's been a great journey, and I'm so happy to be sharing all of the pearls of insights or the pearls of wisdom with Vanessa today, and with all of you. So we've got for you guys a tote bag with some goodies in there and some stationery and a feedback form as well. So before you guys leave today, just please feel free to hand that in. If either one of you wants to, after this meeting, sit down with us and go through a consultation, please feel free to leave your details, and we'll be in touch in the next.
Thank you, Hadi. So moving forward, we are pleased to introduce you to Vanessa Jansen, who will share her expertise and insights on how to create $2 million within 15 years. Vanessa has been a driving force behind the success of Positive Dynamics, bringing her vast experience from the field to the table, and has been a trailblazer in the financial field industry since the starting of the humble beginning alongside Dave in 2006. Vanessa has a passion for helping clients in reaching their financial goals, and as a speaker, Vanessa is renowned for her engaging and thoughtful, provoking presentations. Vanessa has a unique ability to distill a complex concept into accessible insights that resonate with audience from all the backgrounds and all the experience levels. Please join me in welcoming Vanessa to the stage.
That was really beautiful, and also just point out that we are joined by Liam, who is in our team, and Hayley at the back there. So thank you guys for coming and joining us. So how's everyone feeling today? Good, excellent. Well, I'm really excited to be here as well, and I'm glad that you can make some time to come, because today we're going to be talking about how to create $2 million within 15 years. So before I get started, I want to tell you a little bit about my story. So myself and my husband, we started the business back in 2006. So that's we're in our 17th year of business now. And a little bit more about myself and the topic what we're talking about. You'll see here a photo of an old house. This is a house that I actually purchased in the early 2000s, and I was 18 actually when I bought it. So there are a couple of things, a couple of important points that I looked at when I was purchasing this, and they're still really relevant today, and we're going to talk about those. And not just with regards to property, with regards to all different assets. So the first thing that I was really thinking about was income. I'm 18 years old, I'm studying at university, I've got a couple of part-time jobs. How am I going to pay the loan back? So I had to really give some consideration to income. Now, I was lucky, this is a really big house, as you can probably see there. I actually had 5 bedrooms. I was able to create 6 bedrooms out of this house, and I was able to live downstairs. So maybe not the best living structure, but really great from an income point of view. And not only was I able to pay back the loan and cover all the expenses that came with the property, I was also able to save quite a bit of money and put myself through uni. So that was a really great experience with investing. The second side to this was capital. So does anyone want to have a guess at how much this was worth, how much I bought this for? Back then it was early 2000s. This is at Tagan. So if anyone knows Tagan, it's about 15 kilometres north of Brisbane. 180? Oh, you're close. Anyone else want to have? Sorry.
I said 4.
400. A little bit high. It was actually 123,000 that I I purchased it for. And it was just before the boom. I mean, I didn't have the crystal ball. It would have been nice if I had the crystal ball. I would have bought plenty of them. But I bought it for 123,000. Still own this property today. Anyone want to have a guess at how much that's worth now? So
Is the area, I don't know the area.
there you go. There's a lot of townhouses in the area, and it's near Chermside. So if you know Chermside Shopping Centre, it's really close. Like you can drive there in 5 minutes or less.
I say 1.7.
1.7. Okay, we're going to go down. Down a bit. I'll tell you the answer. So just probably 12 months ago, there was houses similar selling in the area. Also, looking like this for about 900,000. Yeah.
Not as close to the city as I thought.
Maybe people want the land or get closer to the city. But I'd say now, like realistically, because the market's pulled back a little bit, it's probably somewhere around 750 to 850. Not that I'm planning on selling it now because I'm still working, but it just demonstrates assets can be really important from an income point of view and from a capital point of view. And when we're talking about building wealth for retirement or building wealth for 15 years from now, they're the sorts of things that you've got to consider. So, general advice warning. Everything that we go through today is general. It's not specific to your personal circumstances. However, if you would like, as Hardik mentioned, we'd encourage you to fill out some feedback forms that you've got there towards the end of the presentation. And for those online, hopefully you've got something on email that you can reply to us with. And organise a complimentary meeting with one of our team members, because we'd love to go through this exact scenarios that we're going to go through today and help you build 15 million, wouldn't that be nice? $15 within 15 years. Just checking if everyone.
Attention now.
Everyone's paying attention. We're going to talk about good quality assets. So, yeah, 15 million would be great, but we're not magic workers. None of these get rich quick schemes. So it's all real things that we can all do. So first thing I want to just cover off are some really common scenarios of what we see with the sorts of clients who are able to help achieve these goals. So it's generally people that are, and everyone's different, but it's generally people around 45 mark, give or take. They own a house, but they're paying it off. So the bank, they're paying back quite a bit to the bank. They work hard and they earn a really good income. And they receive employer contributions. So whether you're self-employed or an employee, you should be receiving some employer contributions. That's at 10.5% at the moment. And that's a really important point to also building that long-term wealth. Normally there's a couple. It's normally not just an individual in most circumstances when we're looking at this sort of strategy. And the last point there that I want to talk about is the potential for surplus income. So I say potential because the life that we all live these days is very materialistic, and we all tend to spend everything we earn. So what we want to do though is we really want to have the potential to save money. And that's where we're going to start with, is just quickly having a look at what that looks like, some tools that can help you identify what you can save, because to build $2 million in 15 years, we need a bit of spare cash flow to do it. Please, if you've got any questions as I go through as well, feel free to ask or keep the questions for the end. So step one, creating some surplus income. So anyone that came to our previous seminar that we did a couple of weeks ago will have seen this slide already. So we did a seminar on money mastery, and it's a really important area to get the foundations right. And that's where we're really having a good look at our expenses and our income. And then we're going to work out, well, what surplus do we actually have? For today, I'm going to look at $400 a week surplus income. So that's what really we're looking to allocate to help you build $2 million. And there's a really great website there that you can go to. So if you just write down that link on the Money Smart website, you'll find a budgeting tool, which looks just like this. And that is going to help you identify, when you do the exercise, it's going to help you identify some money, some surplus income. So step 2, and this is really the first spot that we like to start with people when we're looking to build that long-term wealth, and it's a superannuation. So everyone would generally have a superannuation account. When we start work, normally when we're around the age 18, our employer sets us up with a super fund. We don't really take any notice to what investment option we've been put in, and we kind of go into a default investment option. So that's the first point that, that we want to start with, is actually having a think about, well, how is the allocation of my investments within the super fund? That's really, really important. And I'm going to show you as we go over to the next slide why that's so important and how just taking notice of that could automatically help you have a lot more money when you get down the track. Second point is we want to have a look at contributions. So I spoke earlier about allocating $400 a week to surplus money to investment. So we want to use a little bit of that money to go towards our super, because it's a really good bucket of wealth for later on. So we've got a chart. Has anyone seen this chart before? An index chart? Getting lots of no's and puzzled faces. Okay, this is a really great chart. I love this chart, and all of our advisors, so if you're an existing client, you will have seen this chart before, because this is a really important tool for education purposes and to really understand what your super is doing and what other asset classes are available. So if I just start over here, you may be able to see it depending where you're sitting, but that's 1950. And then you'll see every year along, and this chart ends at the end of 2021. So if we go back to 1950, before probably a lot of us were born, but if we had $100 back at that point there, and we put that $100 into a bank account, we can follow this smooth and flat line. Your $100 today would be worth almost $6,600. So that's just putting it into cash and just saving it. Let's look at another option. So we take that $100 and we put it into Australian shares. So we're simply just going with the top 200 shares, and we're going to hold that, reinvest all the income back into it, and we're following the dark blue line. So that same $100 could have turned into $307,000 over exactly the same period of time. So we're talking about your super. So your super is, in fact, depending on who you're with and what investment option you're in, is going to hold a little bit of Australian shares. It may also be holding some cash. Now, we're talking about building $2 million within 15 years. If we're looking to do that, we've got time on our side. We really don't want any assets that are not helping us build wealth. They're the sorts of things that we consider when we're leading into retirement or actually in retirement. And this light blue line, this just demonstrates really what your default super fund would be doing. So if you haven't had time to pay attention, or you don't have the skills, which that would be most of us because we're not taught at school around superannuation, we'd probably be sitting in this default investment option, which over the same period of time, you would have had built 135,000. So there's the brief explanation. I could spend a lot longer going into much more detail, but there's a brief explanation around different sorts of assets that you can hold in your fund, and the power of holding them long term and being more exposed to growth assets such as Australian shares and international shares over the long term. So let's have a look at how this converts in dollar terms. So let's look at this scenario where we've got a starting super balance of $200,000. So we've got $200,000 invested today. We have an income, so that person has an income of $100,000 a year, and then that attracts a super contribution on top. So we've got 10.5% super contributions coming in. If we're in a default fund over the long term, we would assume that you're earning about a 6% return on average. However, if we now put this into, if we have a look at the asset allocation, we get some professional advice on how to invest this money. We're going to be looking at more Australian shares and international shares as an example. We're now able to use a return of 9%. And that's the sort of work that we do with our clients. We actually help them achieve these long-term results. Now, the difference is if we go on this $200,000 starting balance and we do nothing, we stay in that default option, we don't have a pay rise or on 100,000 for the next 15 years with 10.5% super contributions. We'll have about 700,000 in 15 years, which is not bad. But here's the alternative. The alternative is you simply pay attention to how the money's invested, get some professional advice, average a 9% return, so that's only 3% better, but now you're on track to build $1 million over exactly the same period of time. Isn't that amazing? Like, you haven't used any of your cash flow, you've just paid attention to what you're investing in. So the sooner you get started on that strategy, the better. You know, if you've got 20 years until you can access your super, well, then you're going to do even better than that. Next bit is if you can now allocate a little bit of money to your super. So what we're talking about here is a salary sacrifice, and that's where you're using some of your income that you earn from your employer and you're just diverting it into your super. So I said earlier that we'd like to allocate $400 surplus money for investment purposes. I want to use $100. So we've got $300 left. $100 of that is going to go into super, and I'll show you the long-term benefits. So same scenario. The only thing I've changed now is rather than being in the default option and doing nothing, now we've improved the investment and put $100 a week in between now and 15 years. And now we've been able to build that to 1.3, a bit more than, sorry, 1.1. 1.13. So $430,000, $40,000 better off than what you were by doing nothing. So that's the power of superannuation and paying attention to what you're doing there. Second step is so when you've got your own home, which we're assuming in this scenario that you've got your own home, and what you find, so if we use an example where the home's worth $800,000, where you've had some time for the market to increase, so now the property's worth more than the loan. So in this scenario here, the loan's actually really small. The loan's sitting at $200,000, where the value's at $800,000. So a great scenario to be, that's probably something that might happen 15 or 20 years after purchasing the first house. But then what we want to do is we want to have a look at that loan to value ratio. Has anyone heard that terminology, loan to value ratio? Yeses and no's. So what we do when we're talking about a loan to value ratio is we have a look at the loan versus the value. So we've got 200,000. So if anyone's got a calculator and you put in 200, can someone help me out and put in 200,000 divided by, Linda, are you going to help me out?
I'm going to write it and walk you through it.
I'm sure you can do it, Linda. Everybody's saying do it, that's right.
What's the artist?
It's the art of that. So 200,000 divided by 800,000. Did you do it right? Perfect. So what that means is we've got a loan to value ratio of 25%. You can do that. So what we want to look at in this scenario is we don't want to exceed an 80% loan to value ratio. You've probably heard that number thrown around before. And what that means is we've just got more equity in the house as a loan. So if we add, so if we went to the bank, we don't have any lenders here in the room, but if we went to the bank would, depending on a number of variables, but they would be quite happy to release some money from the value of this home for other investment purposes. So in this scenario here, we've looked at 200,000. So if we go 200 plus 200, 400, divided by 800, that'll be a 50% loan to value ratio, and Linda's going to check my numbers. Follow it. That was an easy one to calculate. 50% loan to value ratio. But then we've got here also, we can actually take out an extra 220,000. That brings us up almost to an 80% loan to value ratio. So what that's showing us in this scenario is you can actually release 420,000 for other investment purposes to create more wealth. Isn't that exciting? So again, we're not using our own money now, we're using the bank's money. We're using an asset that we've created and has grown over time. So you can use borrowing money to invest in property, and you can use borrowed money to invest in shares. But today I needed to pick one, and we're building a few different other assets. borrowing money to buy a property. And I'm going to show you the benefit of that over the long term. As financial planners, we don't get into the property selection at all. We'll very much get involved in the strategy though, because the strategy works. It's worked for myself, it's worked for so many of our clients. And today I want to show you how it can work for you as well. So if you look at a new purchase, you've found something that's 600,000 and you say, that's a great investment, I'm going to buy that. You'll need a deposit. So we use the 200,000 that we took out of the home as a deposit for this new purchase. And then we go to the bank and we say, well, I actually need the balance, which is 420,000. So now we've got a full loan to service that property purchase. We haven't used any of our own money. And now let me just confirm, there's an accountant in the room. This is fully tax deductible. I'm getting a nod. Yeah. So it's a great tax strategy, but it's also great for wealth building. Does that make sense? So something that's really important though when we're buying a property, as I was telling you in my example. So one, we need to look at the cash flow. We need to look at the income on the property because we really don't want to be too far out of pocket from a cash flow point of view, but we need to be prepared for it. So what I've just said here is what we always do with our strategy work with our clients is we make sure they can afford a 3% increase in interest rate. Super important in the environment we're in right now because interest rates are moving quite quickly, increasing. So we want to make sure that we can afford that. And we want to look at a 15-year time frame. When we're buying an asset like property, we need a lot of time on our side because that's the sort of asset we're dealing with. It's a long-term asset. So let's have a look at this example. So I've just changed it up a little bit from the page prior. What we're looking at doing is we've actually purchased something for 750,000. We've got an interest-only loan, so we're actually not paying down any of the principal. We're only paying the interest repayments back to the bank. I'm not going to go into all the reasons why, but there's lots of benefits in doing that way. And then you have to talk to your mortgage broker or your bank about making sure that you can roll over that interest-only period for the whole way. But they're the assumptions that I've made for this example. So we've held it for 15 years. We've assumed a growth rate of 5%. Now, if you're buying near a capital city, you say close to the city. I normally say within 25 kilometres, but give or take. You should be buying a good quality asset, and we should be very comfortably able to assume that it's going to grow at 5% per annum. That property that you purchased for 750,000 would be worth about $1.5 million. Then, of course, we've got to give the bank's money back. So we didn't pay down any principal. We still owe 750,000, so we give that back to the bank. And we've created ourselves 782,000. So I can tell you from my example, that's absolutely achievable, but you do need to have time on your side. You do need to have spare money to support that property because at times you may be out of pocket. And of course, there's some tax and selling costs that you'll need to use when you do come to selling that property, which you've got a really great accountant. You can look at minimising it. And you can also look at some strategies from a financial planning point of view to minimise that tax. So I often get asked the question, Vanessa, and I know Hardik would give you the same questions, and Natalie and Justine, you all get the same questions from clients. What should I do? Should I buy property or should I invest in shares? Now, there is no right and wrong answer because both are really great assets over the long term. There's benefits, there's positives and negatives of each, and it really depends on your personal circumstances and what you're comfortable with. But what we really believe in is diversification. We don't want to have all of our eggs in one basket. I'm sure you've heard that terminology before. And the reason that we don't is because it's very risky and there's a chance of not succeeding. So when I'm talking about building $2 million in 15 years, we want to make sure that it's achievable. We don't want to put a question mark around it. So we want to diversify. If we have a look at property, we're purchasing something for 750,000. That's a lot of money to go in one single asset. So we want to do a lot of research to know that we've purchased that property well. And if I look at that from a share point of view, so everyone knows Commonwealth Bank, you can go and buy Commonwealth Bank shares. I would feel it's a very risky strategy if you went and bought 750,000 of Commonwealth Bank shares. You just put all your money in one asset. And so it's just really important that we keep in mind diversification when we're looking at building our wealth. And this is the great, I've got a couple of slides here that just look at comparisons of property, residential property versus shares. So this is dating back to 1926. And it doesn't quite run up to where we are, but it'll give you a good indication. So it's 2016. And as you'll see, the blue line and the green line, the top line here is the Australian shares, and residential properties just slightly below, but at times properties being higher than the shares. They actually do track very similar, and I've seen so many different reports to show this over the years. It really does come down to what you're comfortable with, and also keeping in mind diversification. These couple of lines at the bottom, it just reiterates that if we're looking to build long-term wealth, we really don't want to be in bonds and cash and other fixed interest products. It's not going to help you achieve the best outcome with your money. Then I've got a great comparison here looking at the US. So the US share market over time has performed much better than the Australian share market. We've got the same analogy. So this is looking at 1990. It doesn't date back as far. It comes right to 2020. And the international shares, sorry, this is the US shares. Is this line here? But you can see how volatile it is. And the property markets is smoother, gradual line. You can see they're very similar as well. So, final step is looking at a professionally managed share portfolio. So if we think about our budget, so we had $400 that I said we want to allocate. $100 is going to go to super, and I'm going to suggest you put $100 into a share portfolio. So we've left $200 available for the property. I'm assuming that it's not like the property that I purchased and you're not putting lots of rooms out and really running a boarding house. I'm assuming that it's a typical property, and typically you do need to put a little bit of money in each week to hold it. Depending on your income, will depend on your tax breaks, it will all depend on what you're out of pocket. So you really need to run that scenario before you buy, but I've looked at $200 out of pocket. In this scenario here, now we're looking at a professionally managed share portfolio. So we've got now 3 buckets of money. We've got our superannuation, which is a great tax haven, but it also has some restrictions. We can't access this money until we're 60 or retired and older. We've got an investment property, but the investment property is not liquid. If I need some money, I can't just go and sell off a bedroom. I'll have to sell the whole house. And sometimes the market, the property market, it can be booming, and then other times it can be really flat, and it's not the right time to sell. So that's why we have then a professionally managed share portfolio, because it's not subject to any age restrictions. You can access this account whenever you like. And it's also liquid. So if you do need some money, you can quite easily tap into it and take the money out. It's very flexible. So let me show you an example. So a share portfolio, if we think back to how I was talking about superannuation and how it's invested, it's exactly the same in fact. We can have all the same investment options, but it's just something that's in your personal name that you can access. So I'm going to look at the example that you start with $5,000 and you're able to put $100 a week into this investment. You're going to get the same rate of return that you do in your super, so we're going to assume a 9% return, and we're reinvesting all the income back into that investment. So you'll just see over 15 years, if you continue that strategy, now it says $400 because we're working on months, not weeks, but it is $100 a week, you'll have $171,000 built up as another bucket of money. So, well, let me now show you a case study. We're going to build all of that in together, and you'll see that this is actually, it is easy to accumulate. You mightn't be at the spot where we're starting today, so you may not already have the house. Some of you may already have the house. You may have equity, you may not have equity. So we really need to have a look at your personal circumstances. But I do know this is achievable for everybody. You just need to kind of work through your personal position and we can work out how we can help you achieve this. So the scenario, we've got a family home worth $1.2 million. We've got some motor vehicles worth $85,000. Got a super balance of $200,000, so that's for one person in the couple. The other person has $50,000. So we quite often, it's not uncommon to see one person in a relationship will have a small super balance. And that's because it's quite typical that we have family, we have children, and someone takes a bit of time off work. So they're going to have a little bit smaller balance. And then we've got some loans. So there's a $700,000 loan attached to the house. And there's get some car loans of 50,000. The income, there's one person in the relationship earning $100,000 a year and the other person's earning $65,000 a year. Now their goal, the goal of this couple here is that they want to create enough wealth that they have the flexibility to retire in 15 years. So they may not actually retire in 15 years, but they want to have that option. And they said, you know what, we're able to allocate $400 a week to investment purposes to that goal of building $2 million. So got the $400. First place we started with their superannuation. So with that exact scenario we're looking at, so I think that was 250,000 in super combined and 165,000 worth of income combined coming in. And now we put just $100 a week into that fund. There's $1.5 million thereabouts that we're now going to create over 15 years in super. We've done the exact investment property purchase that I was talking about earlier, which over 15 years, we're going to create just shy of 800,000. We're going to allocate $200 a week to that strategy. And then we've also done the exact example that I used earlier, the professionally managed share portfolio. We've got 171,000. So we've used up our $400 a week, and over 15 years, we've built the total wealth there of $2.4 million. So it's really exciting stuff, and it's really achievable. We work with people all the time and help them achieve this, and it's really exciting for us to see our clients retire early, to see them have the option to retire early, and that really gets us passionate about what we do. So we'd love to help you as well. So next steps from here to secure your financial future. Can I ask you take a moment to fill in your feedback thoughts? And there's a section there to just write down your details and a time that you would like someone from our office to contact you. And then we can, it's a complimentary meeting. So we can just have a look in your position and see how we can help you get on track. While you're doing that, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about us at Positive Dynamics. So what we do, you've probably got a really good understanding that we help people build wealth. We help people with lots of strategic advice. But what we also do is we get really involved in the actual investment, so the wealth management of that money. So quite typically, we'll be dealing with people that coming into retirement, so they need some retirement planning advice. They've sold a big business or they've inherited some money. That's also very common because they need people to help with investing. And that's on top of all the strategies that we went through today. So really, if I was to sum it up, I would say that we help people accumulate and manage great quality assets. And we help them manage that for life.
Okay, so can I have a
Question, Linda, yeah.
question? So do people just give you all their money and then you just send them the $2 million?
Great question. Great question. Now, that is a good question because there have been financial planners that have hit the news where they've actually taken money off clients. So Melissa Caddick's one that comes to my mind if I'm pronouncing her surname correct. And you don't want to deal with any financial planner in our opinion, anyone in our firm will agree, you don't want to hand over any of your money to any financial planner, anyone. You want to be in control of your money. So what we do is we use platforms. We'll help facilitate the setup of an account. We might even use your existing accounts. So whether that be superannuation or whether that be a professionally managed share portfolio, we'll have login details, but we can never withdraw any money. We can only authorize payments for the account holder. So we never, we're like a third party.
Right.
And when it comes to property, we'll get all involved in the strategic side of things. We're not going to get involved at all in the actual property purchase itself. So again, we're not handling any money. Yeah.
Okay.
I have a question. I apologise for this, but I got a little bit lost at one point, just where, you know, when you had the picture of the houses and you said $200,000 mortgage, $800,000 house value.
Yeah.
I got a little bit lost at what we took out of that and then what we used. Sorry.
Yeah. Do you want me to jump back to the side?
If you're able to.
Let's see. So, and show that'll work.
Yeah.
Yeah, this slide is very confusing. Like the
I
current
think I
slide.
was writing my notes a bit intently, so I'm sure you were doing it well.
Yeah, so what we're actually using in this, so there was a couple of points I was trying to explain.
Yeah,
So one point is the loan to value ratio is really important, but to actually purchase this property, what we need is a 20% deposit.
Yeah.
So 20% of 600,000. Someone mind working that out for me?
120.
Thank you, got it.
You didn't even need a calculator.
No, you don't need that. So you actually only need 120,000
Yeah.
to be able to purchase this property realistically. But in this example, we've used a larger sum.
okay, so you took,
Yeah, so what actually happens, like if we actually look in theory, you log into your bank and you'll see I've got a $200,000 mortgage, that's what I currently own. Then you'll go and talk to the bank and they'll be like, yeah, we're happy to give you another 200,000. So when you log in, you'll see 200,000 underneath the other
okay,
200,000. So you'll see two lines, but one will show that you're able to access the full amount of money. The other one will show that you can't withdraw anything.
Yeah.
And so then you can withdraw that to purchase that
okay, so
property.
that's the only part that we took out of the existing loan, the rest of the other part of the equity. Yeah, stayed there and then there's the loan. Okay,
That's right,
that's all,
yeah.
that's where I got a bit lost, sorry.
Yeah, it's a good thing.
Thank you.
That's all right. That makes sense now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so you could have actually taken out 420,000 quite comfortably for investment purposes. It depends on the situation.
Amazing, thank you.
Anyone else have some questions for me?
So I have another question. So how long will it take you to start seeing that your health is actually working?
Every year we do have a review meeting, a formal review meeting, and we have a look at the progress that's been created. But got to keep in mind, a lot of these assets are really long-term assets. You don't see as much benefit in the early years, like we look from year 1 to 2 versus looking at year 14 to 15, because of the snowball effect with investment markets, whether that be property or shares. So what we do is every year we catch up, we have a really great calculator that puts in all these assets. And then we're able to see, oh, this is where you are. Now, this is how much money you'll have in 15 years. That's the target. Yeah, but definitely you see a larger benefit towards the end because of the snowball effect of investments growing.
But it's nice to know, like, for example, super, everyone often talks about it. I don't know if other people do this, but I often go in there and like look at the options and think,
Yes.
should I change to a different one or whatever else? It's nice to have that advice from someone who does all of that, because up until now I've been trying to do my own research and make my own decisions about all these different financial things that is not my skill set.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm finding a deficit
Yeah.
in the ability to implement strategies. You can understand the core, like, okay, well, it's good to have good super, you know that.
You know that, that's
Yeah,
right.
Then you're like, all right, what is good super? And if I put it in here, what's going to happen?
What does that
So
mean?
A lot of research without the financial know-how.
And the market's changing all the time
Yeah.
as well, which is what we do. And that's what Hardik was saying. He sits on the investment committee and he gets right involved in the investment side of things. It's brilliant, very smart man. But it's not something that people generally at home would know how to do because we're not taught. And we have jobs doing other things, you know.
Yeah.
You're a
Education
education, yes,
specialist.
yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, and so, you know, this is what I do every day of the week. This is what I'm passionate about. So I'm going to be really great at it, but I would never try and do your job.
No, in my job, we use subject matter experts for all of our areas of expertise.
Yeah.
So I guess for me, this feels a little bit like getting subject matter expertise in a sense, because we do, you know, if I'm writing on robotics and we're developing learning for that, we would get someone with a PhD in robotics.
Specialised in that. And that's exactly what we are. We're specialists.
Yeah.
So we actually have specialists in our team in all different areas, because if we look at money, it's such a big area. There's there's Centrelink as you're getting older, there's aged care, and then we look at accumulating and there's superannuation. So many different aspects of it. And so we have specialists in our team. So we're working on a client that often brings someone else in to help. And Hardik happens to be the specialist in the investment or one of the specialists in the investment space.
Yeah, that's very interesting to me, because for me, that's where I've been feeling like you just swamped in information, trying to navigate something that you probably shouldn't be doing.
Absolutely. When you say something you shouldn't be doing, we've seen this horrible, I don't know how to describe it, the really sad cases where people do manage it themselves. And I'll tell you what happens from our experience, because we see them coming to us after they've made mistakes. And if I think about when COVID happened, it's a really great example. We had a number of new clients come to see us, and they said, we moved all of our money to cash, all of our superannuation, $500,000, $1 million, whatever it was, we put it all in cash. The market started to move up, and I don't know how to get back in. I don't even know what assets I should be in. I know I made a mistake. And that's often what will happen, that you'll hear something on the radio, the media is great for creating a lot of anxiety and fear.
There was a lot of fear mongering at that time that the entire world stock market was going to crash. And if people don't understand how global markets work, then they can think it's a possibility.
That's right. That's right. So that's part of our role as well. We do spend a lot of time educating clients, and it's often the more money that people have, then the more fearful they'll be when the markets are volatile. Because at 10%, like you think if you've got $100,000 and it moves 10% down, or you've lost $10,000. You've got $1 million invested and it goes 10% down, you've lost $100,000. You turn that into $2 million and $3 million, you can start to imagine how you feel as you get these volatile moments. And they happen. That's part of the investment world. And it happens in the property market as well. And we just don't see it as much because there's no value on our letterbox on a daily rate. But that's part of our job, is to help people through those emotions that they feel, to make sure that they make really smart decisions with their money.
Yeah, it's very good.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for coming, everyone. I would like to say as well, we do have a range of seminars so that we can kind of cater to everyone at different times in their life. We have another seminar on Wednesday night. It's actually Dive as Zero. So it's a really interesting conversation starter, because people interpret this in all different ways. But the truth is once you've built your wealth, so you've got your $2 million or whatever that looks like, it's then about, well, what does my life look like? What experiences do I want to have? And don't be fearful that you need to hold on to all of this money. I know that's how you are when you're accumulating it, but then you get to a point in your life when you actually want to enjoy what you've accumulated. And often we'll have new clients come in to meet with us, or even existing clients that have decided to retire, and that we know that they've got enough money to retire, but they start to question themselves. And it's really about helping people understand that, live your best life, use your money that you've built up, and let's think about what that looks like. Are we going to give an early inheritance to the children? Are we going to, go on some overseas trips? We're going to go through all of that in this really great seminar. So if you're interested, or you think someone else, maybe parents or someone we'd love you to come along. It's actually just on Wednesday night, because I had to postpone today's seminar because I wasn't well last week. So thank you very much for joining me, everybody. It's been really fun.
Thank you.